Today is all about getting our square foot garden started and creating our Mels mix. Hi everyone, I'm Jackie. Welcome to the Edible Yarden. We are located here in Arizona, and today is about mid-May, and we're getting into the hundreds. So I'm standing under our newly created shade structure. So let's take a look at what we got going on. So we moved into this house. The backyard was completely empty with just dirt. All we've added so far is cement for our hopefully soon to be covered patio, and then cement for that seated area. And then yesterday, Ricky, my husband, helped put together this. So over here, we already have a little bit of shade from the neighbor's tree, but we went ahead and extended out with this shade cloth here. We do have a miracle fruit, and they are very sensitive to the heat and the cold, so we wanted to make sure that we had some type of shade for them. So we're going to be clearing out all these rocks eventually, and that bush will be going here. This is our first 3x3 raised bed. Now when you're doing the square foot gardening method, they recommend 3x3 for kids and 4x4 for adults. We have designed this whole area though, so I'll show you what the design is in another video. We just purchased these cement corners at Home Depot or Lowe's. They basically come already set, that all you need to do is get wood and cut it to whatever size you want, and you can create any size bed that you want for fairly cheap. So we just starting off with 3x3. We have a bunch of leftover cardboard right here, so I thought I would go ahead and just line the bottom with it to help with decomposing later on. Alright, so we're going to start making our Mels mix. So like I said, you basically need 1/4 or 1/3 peat moss, 1/3 compost. They said to try to use 5 different kind. I basically have like 2.5 basically. I have mushroom compost, steer manure, and this is Seamus O'Leary's Green Life. It has 2 different kinds of compost, mulch compost, lava rock, stuff like that, worm castings, things like that. So this is kind of like a pre-mixed thing. That's actually I bought specifically for our fruit tree, but I'm going to put in with these guys. And then my vermiculite is already over there. I showed you that earlier. So we're going to do, how do you know how much to use? Well, depending on the size of your bed, basically will determine how much you need. So we have a 3x3, I have a 3 foot by 3 foot bed, which is basically 9 square feet. We're going to be filling it 6 inches deep, so basically 9 square foot divided in half, because we're using half of a foot, gives me, so we need 4.5 cubic feet. And if I divide that by the 3 ingredients, we need 1.5 of each ingredient of cubic feet. So then how do we know how much we need? Well, we have to look on the bag and see what's on the bag. So these bags here tell me that that is 1 cubic foot. Let's double check this one. 1 cubic foot. So I know this one is basically 1 cubic foot. This, I have no idea how big it is, and this peat moss expands once you open it up. So we will, I think this says, oh, it says 3 cubic feet. Okay, that's good. And then the vermiculite, this is 2 cubic feet, okay? So I know that I need 3/4 of this bag, right? And I need half of this peat moss. I need half of this, and then because I'm mixing these 3 together, I will need half of each of these bags. Okay, so I'm gonna start mixing those together. What I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start filling each one of these. I'm gonna fill into this it's 2 gallon bucket. Cranial. Alright, so this is pretty light. A lot heavier than the other ones. So what we have down here now is vermiculite, peat moss, and this is 3 different types of compost. I just did an even amount of each, so I used my 2-gallon bucket just to fill up each one, and we're gonna mix it all together on this tarp. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna wet down our garden bed really well. Then we will put this on, we'll wet this down really well. We're gonna kind of we're gonna keep doing layers. So we'll mix stuff together, wet it down, add more. We should basically be using roughly half of everything that I have on hand. So I should have enough on hand to make one more 3x3 bed, with the exception of we'll need to purchase a little bit more of the vermiculite. But otherwise, I'm feeling good about this. I've gardened in the front yard last time I gardened in the front yard. I really didn't know what kind of mix to use, so I just used mushroom compost and like a basic like vegetable garden type soil. I had no clue what was in it, and then I kept feeding it like vegetable food, and I felt like I was missing something. So these are going to be really good because should work. Smells mixed. So the peat moss and the vermiculite help absorb moisture and keep moisture in the garden bed, so then it really helps, especially here in Arizona. And then by using different types of compost, you're getting more sources of nutrients from other places. The one item I would like to add to here is called azomite, and it's kind of like a rock dust. It's mineral dust, and we will be using it on all the trees that we plant. So once we get it, I probably will mix it into the garden beds as well, as opposed to using like a fertilizer food. That basically would be the fertilizer food. And then when we do the trees, we also are going to be using like fish emulsion, so maybe I'll use that in the garden as well. We'll have to see. I am using my mask because allergies are crazy and dust is crazy, so if you have a mask, well, let's get to it. So if we have 2 people, you can each do it, but we have 1 person, so we're just going to work our way around. I'm really excited. I just got really excited about this. That vermiculite is actually really, really light. When my husband picked it up for me yesterday, he's like, yeah, I was bracing myself like I was going to pick up, like a 40-pound bag of something, and he's like, it's so light, and I could handle it very easily. But for the purpose of this, because I'm working by myself, it's great to do this. There's no shoveling. It's so easy. You saw how easy I mixed it together. And again, I'm just using the 2-gallon bucket at a time just because it's weight and it's stuff that I can manage. Yes, I'll be making more trips as opposed to dumping, half the bag on here at a time, but I just felt this is something I can probably actually lift up and do that. Okay, it's nice and wet. Looks good. Alright, you guys, so this is I think my 4th batch. So now what I'm doing is I'm not really using my shovel over there. I'm using my hands to get the peat moss because it's really broken up. It's really compact, so I'm using my hands to break up the peat moss. It seems like I still have a ton of peat moss left. The vermiculite seems like I've used the amount that I need. Same thing, the compost seems like I've used about half the bag. But there's still a lot of peat moss because it's so compacted, like in there, that when you get it out, you fluff it up. But anyway, so this is, I think, my 4th batch. And so we'll see how much it actually ends up taking when it's all said and done. If you notice, with the 3-foot by 3-foot bed, because I'm against the wall, you know, I'm going to have to leave at least a foot on each side between the next bed, because you have to be able to get around to get to the back. So the 4x4, again, you want to make sure that you still have a walkway around it so you can get to all 4 corners of the bed, or at least 2 sides of the bed, just like this one. You want to at least be able to get to, you know, 2 sides of the bed or 3 sides of the bed, so you can work your way around the bed. When I do the other ones back here, they're only going to be 2 feet, because they're going to be so close to each other that I'm not going to really have space between them. I'm just going to have to do the 2. But anyways, the sizing, the reason they say that a 4x4 bed, which holds 16 square feet, can feed one person, like, basically their salad for a day during the season. Or one 4x4 foot, 16 square feet bed can feed one person all of their dinner vegetables for the season. They say a 3x3 is what will be enough food to feed a child. So we are a household of 4. We have 2 adults and 2 kids. So we're doing 2 of these 3x3 beds. We're going to do 2 4x4 in the bed, and that's going to be, we're going to primarily focus on that being our dinner vegetables. Then we're going to have 3 or 4 2x3 beds, and possibly 2 1x3 beds, and those are going to be for salads and preserving. So we're not going to have enough for every single person to do salads, because, not to be honest with you, my husband doesn't eat salad, and I have one daughter who will eat salad. So realistically, we'll have enough, a salad bed, if you will, for basically the family instead of every person. And then we'll have basically the equivalent of another bed for preserving for the non-season. That's the idea behind it. So if you look here, so these that I have here, these are a 6-inch thing here. So if you notice, I still have at least another inch to go. So I'm easily going to be able to do one more batch. I think that basically one batch is equaling roughly an inch of soil for my 3x3 bed. But if you also notice back here where my cement block goes in, it's kind of like having posts in the bed, so it is taking away a little bit slightly, but not too much. So I'm going to do at least one more batch, and we'll see. So I'm going to water this first, we'll do one more batch, and we'll see if we need to do maybe a half of another batch. The reason we're wetting it down in between each layer is to really make sure that the soil is moist all the way through, because if I were to fill this all and then try to soak it, it would take a very, very long time for all the water to really seep in. So I actually like the idea of doing it layer by layer and watering it in between. And then we're going to transplant the plants today. So I have some mostly peppers and tomatoes that are going to be needing some type of support. I do have tomato cages that I can bring in a little while and see. So as far as normally then what you do with your square foot garden is you would go ahead and make your square foot grid, either using twine or wood, or even what we are going to end up doing is using some type of a irrigation, like a drip type irrigation to make out our grid. But for today, because I don't have that, I just have basically wood skewers that you would use for, like, you know, shish kebabs and stuff, like barbecuing, and they're actually exactly 1 foot, so I can mark out my 1 foot. But most of the plants that I got today are going to require just 1 plant per square foot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually be putting my tomatoes and peppers along these edges here, because that's where I could end up putting my trellises or my supports. And then we will probably put the mint on this side, and then we will have the zucchini over here, so it can grow out if it needs to, or even here, and we'll have some spaces left over. So maybe we'll try to add some carrots. I don't know if we're too late, because we're just getting started, so we'll have to see. But I'll come back to you guys in a little bit. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of how to create your Mels mix and fill your garden beds. So I have here my 3 by 3 foot by 3 foot square foot garden bed. We just made basically no tools required. You can have the Home Depot or Lowe's cut the wood for you and buy these cement things that are already, they just slide right in. You just buy a 2 by 6, and then you cut it into whatever length you want. So you can do 4 by 4s, 2 by 3s, 3 by 3s, whatever. So this is what we have to plant. So join me in the next episode, and we're going to plant these plants.